Mr. Meek. Chapter 7. Ancient, Obscure and Bizarre. To his relief, Mr. Meek found a candle and a box of old matches halfway down the stairs. His hands trembled uncontrollably. He passed them to his wife, who struck a match and lit the candle. Strike! The flickering light illuminated shelves and shelves of dusty old leather-bound books. The library vaults were a treasure trove of titles that were ancient, obscure and bizarre. There were thousands of books down there, all of them long out of print. Poisonous cheeses of the British Isles, terrifying tales for children, the bumper book of medieval torture, hymns to make your ears bleed, paintings of puddles, odes to stinging nettles, phlegm, a pictorial guide, cats crying at Christmas, how to drown a witch in 5 easy steps, a dictionary of non-existent words, ye olde book of knock-knock jokeofs, cooking with rare birds' eggs, the foulest smells of Victorian London, a scratch-and-sniff book, disgusting diseases for dogs, cake recipes of religious martyrs in Latin, 10,000 tedious poems, the Book of Grot, a short history of socks, a long history of socks, beards of the Bible, a spotter's guide, chamber pots of the rich and famous. One by one, Mr. and Mrs. Meek pulled the books from their shelves. With just a candle to read by, they searched the millions upon millions of words for any reference to a thing. Just as they were about to lose all hope, Mr. Meek thought he saw something move out of the corner of his eye. "What was that?" he whispered. "What was what?" she asked. "Something moved. Maybe it was a rat. I hate rats." With the candle, Mrs. Meek illuminated a dingy corner of the vault. Indeed, something was moving underneath a pile of old newspapers. Rustle, rustle, rustle. She pushed her husband towards it to investigate further. "Go on. I am going. Lift up the newspapers and see," suggested Mrs. Meek. "No, after you. Oh, for goodness sake, let's not start all this again." Reluctantly, Mr. Meek lifted the old damp sheets of paper. To his surprise, all that was underneath was a book. "It's a book." "Books can't move," she replied. "This one did." "What is it called?" Mr. Meek peered down to study the spine. The title sent chills through him. "It's called the Monsterpedia." Part 2. The Monsterpedia. Chapter 8. An Encyclopedia of Monsters. Mr. and Mrs. Meek set the book down on a rickety old table. Thud. The Monsterpedia was a huge leather-bound tome that must have been printed at least a few hundred years ago. It was, as the title suggested, an encyclopedia of monsters. Mrs. Meek blew dust off the cover and opened it. Might this book hold a clue to the existence of a thing? It was the Meeks' final hope. The book was, as far as anyone knew, the only one of its kind in existence. Inside it was an alphabetical list of terrifying creatures that were either long extinct or assumed to be mythical, with lavish, hand-painted illustrations of these creatures on the opposite page. Neither Mr. nor Mrs. Meek had seen or heard of any of them before. First there was an agadongdong, a man-eating underground bird. On the next page was a boo-boo, a giant slug that leaves a poisonous trail of slime in its wake. Then there was the crunkle toad, a reptile so ugly it can kill a man with a look. D was for dum-dum, a cross between a jellyfish and a warthog, and judging by the illustration, even more hideous than it sounds. Next there was the Ibinkybonk, an amphibious monkey found only in the deepest depths of the oceans. The next page was F. The Meeks took a collective breath, praying that they would find what they were looking for. "Fing!" exclaimed Mother. "Yes, we did it! I could kiss you, Father," said Father. "Please don't. Not at work, darling, and the library has a strict no canoodling rule." "Of course. How silly of me. Would you care to read out what it says?" Mrs. Meek cleared her throat and began. "Fing, mammal. This, the most rarest of rare beasts, is found only in the deepest, darkest, jungliest jungle. The appearance of the thing is that of a fur-covered sphere. The size of the beasts vary wildly. One moment they can be as small as a marble, the next as large as a hot air balloon. Things have one large eye in the centre and a hole on either side. One hole is a mouth, the other is its, for want of a more polite expression, bottom. But nobody can be sure which hole is which, not even the thing itself, which has been known to try to feed using its bottom. Having no arms or legs, things move around by rolling, or sometimes even bouncing. Strangely enough, a thing's favourite food is biscuits of the custard cream variety. The thing beasts can devour 100 in seconds, but they will eat almost anything and everything. Things leave behind a trail of foul-smelling droppings, which can be as big, if not bigger, than the creature itself. Warning, never ever keep a thing in your house. They are the world's worst pets. Things are greedy, bad-tempered, and sometimes just plain rude. because they can grow to epic proportions. They may not just eat you out of house and home. They may very well eat your home. Worst of all, they might even eat you. Doom awaits you. After she had finished reading, they both pored over the picture. The thing was a peculiar-looking thing. The illustration, just as the words had described, showed a ball of brown fur with one eye between two dark holes. "Oh dear," said father. "Oh dear indeed," agreed mother. With that she closed the book. "Well, that's the end of that then. There is no way our darling daughter can have a thing." "Poor thing. She is going to be so bitterly disappointed," said father. "I know. Well, I think it's best you break the bad news to her." "Me?" "Yes, Mr. Meek, it's your turn." No, protested Mr. Meek. "It's definitely your turn." "Let's do it together," reasoned Mrs. Meek. "A splendid idea. Thank you. You can go first." Chapter